My name's Jared Adams. I am a musician in the local Winnipeg music scene. So I'm just in the middle of recording my first album called Tragic Nostalgia. It's been sort of a project I've had in my mind for a few years now, and yeah, super excited to be working on it. A few years ago, Alex Koza from Club by Numbers and I were sitting in the basement of the Cavern waiting for a band to start, and I don't remember what we were talking about, but he said something to the effect of like, "Jared, you have a real tragic nostalgia about you." And then I jokingly said at the time, that would be my first solo album. And well, here we are. So that's kind of where it came from. And then that sort of is the theme of the album, is sort of reflecting on being young and trying to hold on to youth and going back to those days that were like the good old days, or whatever you want to call them. The songs are a lot more intricate, I guess. They're not quite as like poppy, upbeat. I remember I had a band teacher years ago saying there's two types of songs. There's like a song and then there's a dance. And a dance is something you can like dance around and move to. These are more like songs, whereas I think Club by Numbers stuff is more like dance stuff. Yeah, they're just like different arrangements and more instrumentation, more keyboards and strings and stuff like that. Well, the first song on the album, Wild at Heart, is sort of about traveling when I was younger, going to like tons of music festivals and seeing lots of bands. And there's specifically a line about Gord Downie in there, "The valley where we saw the band, now we pray the man won't die." I wrote that song like before he died of cancer, but it was kind of like I remember seeing him at Pemberton Festival years ago, and it's pretty awesome because there's like this gigantic mountain right behind the stage and the Tragically Hip were playing. It was a great time. So that song is kind of about like traveling when you're younger and just being wild and going to all these festivals and seeing a lot of music and doing all the things you do when you're young.
Desert roads, atomic gasoline, thrills, sex and lust.
Gorgeous Desire. That one's kind of like a story song about like sort of two characters, like kind of, again, sort of based on traveling when I was younger. And then it's kind of just sort of two characters I developed in my head that are kind of like just trying to escape from like society and escape from the whole American dream. So the song's kind of just about like traveling on a desert highway and just getting away from all that bullshit and living life freely as yourself. I think that's the only song that's kind of like not really introspective, but that was kind of the point of this album, is sort of to be somewhat introspective. But I have in the past written songs that way, but I don't do it too often, no. I think I'm more prefer to just write about my own issues and problems and emotions. This album, I think a lot of it was influenced by Father John Misty, especially Tragic Nostalgia. But even though it's influenced by him, you know, a lot of the songs don't really sound like that. I'm sure a lot of it pulls from other things. Like there's one song that has a very Radiohead sound to it, and then a couple other ones that are more poppy. I don't know if I can really point to anything specifically as the influence for this album. It's all just a bunch of sort of, you know, you kind of hear a song and it gives you an idea or whatever. Like even Wild at Heart sort of started off based on an idea I heard from a Tragically Hip song. I was kind of like, oh, that's a cool thing. I'm going to try to do something similar to that. And that's kind of where that came from. Now it sounds nothing at all like that original song I listened to, but that sort of inspired it. Color by Numbers recorded there a few years ago. With the Color by Numbers stuff, we just went in and sort of, this is how we had the songs, we went in, laid them down, and then did a few overdubs, whereas this was more like a process of sort of developing the songs a bit more well in the studio and trying to figure parts out there. It's much different because we like doing a full album, and it was more like, because it was my own project, I had a lot more say in everything, and it was kind of like I had to give people direction as to what I think they should be doing. And also recording a lot of different instruments. Like, there was not too many keyboard parts on the Color by Numbers stuff, but this song, like every song has like a piano or Rhodes or something. And then we recorded some live strings as well.
The spirit, the shape of the moon.
So everyone I chose I've kind of played with for years, and they're all really good, arguably probably all better than me, which is why I chose them. Because I knew that like they could go into the studio with like minimal rehearsals on the songs and lay them down, and all the tracks would sound like really good and be pretty tight. And like Brian, our bass player, wasn't even available for the only rehearsal we had for the album. He wasn't available for it, but he was still able to come in and lay down the tracks, and it sounds really good, and did some really crazy, interesting stuff that I think is cool. So. So I'm gonna do only a digital release, and instead of selling like CDs, it shows I'm gonna sell posters and stuff with like a download code. Because like, let's face it, like when you buy a CD, what's the first thing you do? You put it in your computer and rip it, and then it goes on a shelf and sits there for like eternity. So there's no point like making CDs. It makes way more sense to just like do a digital thing. I never know what to give for advice. I'd say keep at it, I guess. Just make the music you like to make. Don't worry about what people think about it. It's kind of the lifestyle of musicians. It's kind of like, you know, it's not like other jobs where you can you get good at something and then somebody will hire you to do it. It's like you're essentially an entrepreneur if you want to be a musician, and maybe one day you'll get a record deal or you'll get some sort of agent or whatever that'll work for you. But like in the end, you're basically an entrepreneur. Like you're starting your own business. It's not, you know, you're not just going to become an employee of someone eventually if you want to be a creative musician. Keep it real.